Chris here, and welcome to this little impromptu bonus episode of SFF180, where I am coming to you from my hotel room at the Palmer House Hilton for Nebula weekend, where I have just spent the last 3 days at the Book Expo America, BEA 2016, which was an amazing experience. Once it got going, if those of you who follow me on Twitter know that I had a bit of an unpleasant experience flying down here because my flight was delayed for like 4 hours because of weather. I'm not the best traveler in the world. I don't claim to be. I like the part of traveling that involves being in other places, but the whole flying and airports and security lines thing, I don't do that very well. And, and especially if there's delays. I can really be Grumpy Cat, but Grumpy Cat no more once I finally got there. It was fantastic, a wonderful expo. Not only did I get to meet and finally connect with a number of SFF publicists whom I've been working with for many, many years. Awesome people, great to meet them, but I also made connections with some new publicists and some new imprints, so that was very valuable. And met a bunch of awesome booktubers. Finally got to meet some folks face to face. Hung out a lot with Yamini from Skeptical Reader. Sana from Inkbone's Books. She's fantastic, very cool person. Sana also introduced me to some other of her booktuber friends, people that I didn't know yet, like Victoria Shaw's and Connor from Connor Bookin' It. Finally met him. He's a really nice guy. Yamini was super excited to meet Ann Leckie last night at the Nebula signing event, so it was great fun. About BEA specifically, it was interesting how, reality and my expectations did not always mesh in terms of what the expo would look like. One of the things that I found surprising, I won't say disappointing, but it certainly was, it was not what I was expecting, was that there was very little presence of adult SFF at the BEA, which I thought was interesting. For instance, at the big Random Penguin Pavilion, right? All these SFF imprints that they have there, Del Rey, Ace, Rock, Daw, nothing. No presence whatsoever. It's not that they didn't have some SF, and I'll get to that in a minute, but nothing there from either of those imprints. Also from Tor, right? I mean, the Tor representatives were there, the publicists were there, but only a couple of titles were actually being presented at the booth under the Macmillan Pavilion with all the other Macmillan imprints. Although on Saturday there was one of the signing lines, and there are like a dozen or so autographing lines that you could get into. One of those all-day Saturday was dedicated just to Tor authors. So there's like people like Mary Robinette Kowal and Cameron Hurley and Wesley Chu and David Palmer and Ada Palmer, David Levine. There we go. How did I get that confused? I'm wiped out. But yeah, but it was strange. It really was strange. I guess I was expecting to go to these booths and I'd be like, here's Del Rey Books. Here's everything we've got lined up for the fall. Same thing. Ace, Rock, all of that. No, that wasn't there, and it was really, really strange. But like I said, I did manage to get some stuff in the autographing booth, even though I'm not really an autograph hound. So, for example, I managed to get Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette, because that was what she was signing yesterday in her signing line. So, very happy to see that. But as for YA SFF, everywhere, right? I mean, you could not swing a dead cat at that expo and not hit some young adult SFF imprint or big arc drop. What they do, for example, at some of these booths, when they give away their arcs, is it's a scheduled thing. Like this book at this time, right? And you show up at the booth for the book. If it happens to be something that there's really high demand for, you could find yourself standing in a really long line to get a copy of that book. So there were a few things that I could have gotten that a lot of other folks got, like a new Marissa Meyer book that I just didn't feel like standing in the line. But other times, you could just literally walk right up to the table and take a thing. Thank you very much. But yeah, YA, SFF, huge presence, compared to the almost non-existent presence of adult SFF there. Now, I don't know if that's something that is reflective of priorities in the publishing industry these days, at least in terms of how they look at what kind of SFF is actually most commercial and marketable, or if it's simply something that had to do with the fact that the BEA this year was in Chicago instead of Manhattan, where it usually is, New York City, right, the home of the publishing industry. So, which is very easy. They could just drive everything down the street and set up at the expo in New York City. And as I understand, the New York City expos have always been much bigger than the one here in Chicago was this year, which I can't even conceive of because it was massive. I mean, I didn't even make it to like 2/3 of the exhibit hall. It was so big, and my feet were killing me, and I was wiped out and nearly dehydrated, but it was worth it. So it could just be that. It could be that because they had to like pay all this extra thousands of dollars to ship their displays and their boothing and their product and all of that halfway across the country, they just brought less. Maybe. I don't know. But in any case, still, great fun. Loved meeting all the booktubers, the publicists, the people, walking the floor. And I apologize because I know some of you were probably expecting a vlog like I did last year for my Nebula trip, and I'm sorry that I don't think I'm going to be giving you one of those this year. I just didn't have the energy. I was so frazzled, getting to town, and then once I was there, I was just so busy the whole time. I was just like businessing the whole thing. So I was just walking, meeting, talking to folks, and no real time to just plan and shoot a video, and give it like some witty commentary later on. I just was not in that mindset. So I'm sorry if you're disappointed that that's not happening this time. I did do a that Periscope on Thursday, which was probably kind of half-assed, but doing the walkabout on the exhibit hall floor. But I know some of you watched it, so if it was at all coherent, if you could hear anything I was saying, I hope you got something out of that. But anyway, I'm going to stop yammering because I'm going to show you the ARC haul that I got, not only from BEA, but also what turned up here in the goodie bag at the Nebula conference, and the interesting differences between the two. Okay, so let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with here, and oh, there I am. Hello, there I am in the mirror. Hello. These are the ARCs that I picked up at BEA specifically. So I'm just going to go down the stack and show you in close up what there is. All right, you've already seen Ghost Talkers. That's cool. All right, now a couple of these are some just YA titles from some imprints that are new to me. Harper Teen. I mean, I've already worked a lot with the Harper Voyager, their adult SFF imprint. Again, no Harper Voyager stuff at the HarperCollins booth. At least I didn't meet their rep there, but the Harper Teen SFF had a huge presence, and they had some of the longest ARC drop lines for these books. They were scheduled throughout the day. It was crazy how many people were after this stuff. So yeah, but like Three Dark Crowns, that's a book coming out, I guess, in September. The author is Kendare Blake. Caraval. This is a young adult coming out in January of 2017, for God's sake. They're really getting an early start on this. Author Stephanie Garber, who I met because this was one of those where you had to get into a signing line to get the book at all, which they did with several books. This is coming out from Flatiron Books, not Tor, but Flatiron Books, which is another Macmillan imprint. And this is being described as very much like The Night Circus. So we will see. And as you've already noticed here, Gemina, sequel to Illuminae. That was another stupidly massive line to get into. But I decided, well, just for the sake of that, because it is Gemina and I wanted it, I would go ahead and sit in that line, although I usually have no patience for those huge, like hour-and-a-half long lines. I know I gave Illuminae a bit of a mixed review, but what I liked about it, I liked well enough to keep wanting to read the trilogy. And yeah, so there's that. This is a book now that I was not expecting at all. I had no knowledge of it, and it's called Underground Airlines. The author, as you see, is Ben Winters. He's the author of the Last Policeman trilogy, the second volume of which was Countdown City, which won the Philip K. Dick Award a couple of years ago. This looks to be an extremely provocative, to say the least, book. It's set in the U.S., at the present day, except in this version, this parallel universe version of the U.S., the Civil War never happened. And because of a constitutional amendment preventing the federal government from messing around with states' rights, there are, in the 21st century, still 4 states in which slavery is practiced. And the protagonist of the book is an African American character who works as a bounty hunter for the government, I guess, hunting down escaped slaves. And he finds himself on a mission that I guess causes him to question everything. And it feels like it has a very much of a Children of Men kind of quality to the way the story unravels. But what is really, really scary about this kind of speculative fiction is that you don't really have to stretch your suspension of disbelief to speculate that America today is not too far from that. It seems like it's frightening the way people are these days. But anyway, all right, so much for that. 1000th Floor is a young adult coming out from Harper Teen that is about a massive building. I don't know, it's probably not going to be, quite edgy and dark enough to be a YA version of High Rise, but who knows? Anyway, Airy is the sequel to a young adult book called Magonia by Maria Delana Headley. As you can see there, I grabbed myself another copy of Jerusalem because I could. And Dark Matter. Now here we go. This was a book at the Random Penguin Pavilion. You'll notice that the publisher is not Del Rey, it is Crown. And Crown was the imprint that brought us The Martian. And it looks like Dark Matter is a title that they are hoping will be The Martian for this year. I think Blake Crouch is a guy who is another one of these self-publishers made good kind of dudes. But I got a copy of that, and it looks kind of interesting, so that comes out in August, and I may check it out. Replica, this is another Harper Teen YA. Interesting concept here. See, if nothing else, the YA writers and YA publishers are trying to do something a little bit different and strange with the medium. To whatever degree. The stories may or may not be good, but who knows. This is a book called Replica, and while I haven't really looked closely enough at it to get an idea of the plot. The story is told from the perspective of two different heroines. So, like, one character is Lyra, and then you flip the book over, and the other character is Gemma, or Gemma, I think Gemma. And so the story, it's basically the same story, but it is being told side by side from the perspectives of both of those characters. And you flip the book to read both novels. But it's actually two novels that are meant to be one novel from two perspectives. So that could be kind of interesting, who knows? Some more YA stuff, as you see, it's just all over the place. This is not YA, Children of the New World. It's a writer I don't know of, and it's an imprint, Picador, that is not an SF imprint, but these are described as speculative fiction short stories, so that's really all I know about that. The Graces is a book I've been looking forward to. Appears to be about witches. Laura Eve is someone that I follow on Twitter, and it seems like the book will be very interesting, as well as The Lie Tree. The Lie Tree is a young adult novel, apparently very, very dark, by an author called Frances Hardinge, or Hardinge, I'm not sure the pronunciation. But this has already been kind of a big deal over in the UK. In Europe, it won a huge award over there. And this is the US edition, and as you see, this is a finished copy because it's hardcover. So I guess this is already out, and this is coming out later in the year from an imprint called Amulet. So very happy about that. Last Call at the Nightshade Lounge. This is a little UF from an imprint called Quirk Books, whom I was very happy to meet those folks and talked a lot with their publisher. She was really, really nice. But Quirk Books was the original publisher of Ben Winters' The Last Policeman trilogy. And they occasionally, they don't always, but occasionally they will do this sort of genre fiction. I read the first chapter of this at lunch, and it was really amusing. It's about, the concept is, well, it's all set in an extremely atmospheric Chicago. But the whole premise is that alcohol, like magic powers are related to alcohol consumption. So it's a book about magic and mixology. And the protagonist is this girl, I guess, who's a bartender. And I love that just different drinks give you different powers, which I think is hilarious. Like if you drink rum, it allows you to shoot, energy blasts or something, which I thought was great. So based on just the chapter that I read, it has a good sense of humor to it. I think Jim Butcher fans are really going to like this one. So I'll probably be reviewing that. Railhead, a new YA from and a new publisher to me, Capstone. I met those folks. And Philip Reeve, some of you will know, is the author of a YA trilogy from some years back called The Mortal Engines, which is very well thought of. Okay, here's some adult fantasy, finally, that I think some of you are going to be very happy about. Scott Baker is an author who, while probably not as big and as well known as guys like Joe Abercrombie or George R.R. Martin, certainly he does write within that kind of realm, and he has a dedicated cult fan base. And this is the third and final book in his trilogy, The Aspect Emperor, which is in turn a follow-up trilogy to his very first trilogy, which was The Prince of Nothing, which is a very philosophically heavy trilogy about a land that is racked by an incredibly violent religious crusade and war. And Scott Baker himself apparently has a PhD in philosophy, so he throws a lot in there. This trilogy finale, Great Ordeal, has been delayed by years. I think something like 5 or 6 years it's been since the second book. And for a long time it was looking like it wasn't even going to come out. People had no idea what was up with it. But here it is, as you can see. And I got an email from one of Scott's fans sometime back, and the impression that he gave me was that it was largely due to efforts on the part of fans, like on Reddit, like r/fantasy or something, like really pushing the publisher, like, just get this book out. So it looks like that worked out, didn't it? And finally, we have The Sudden Appearance of Hope, which is a new book by Claire North. And again, there weren't any actual Orbit titles at the Hachette Pavilion. No arcs for Orbit stuff, but I guess Claire North is close enough to speculative fiction. But I talked to Ellen, the Orbit publicist. She was there, and she was terrific. And she said a lot of things weren't just ready. So the Obelisk Gate arcs for the sequel to the 5th season, those were just not yet ready. And a few others that they just didn't have on hand. But, okay, so that is it. That's my ARC collection from BEA specifically. And now I'm going to show you a few other things. So if you're an attendee at the Nebula conference, you get a goodie bag. You get a free, like here's the actual bag itself, right? And you get a goodie bag with tons of books in it. Lots of them tend to be things that have already been released. Like I've literally got a stack behind me of 20 items of books that are like already released. But here are some of the ARCs that were here, but they were not at BEA. For example, like this is an Orbit title. Looks like it is coming out in August the 2nd, it says. Book called Behind the Throne. Looks like a debut space opera. And I love the way they're pushing this one on the back. Look at the part of the sales. It says, Behind the Throne begins an action-packed new series with a heroine as rebellious as Han Solo, as savvy as Leia, and as skilled as Rey. So there. Did you get the message, Star Wars fans? Huh? Read this book, Star Wars fans. God damn it. But hey, why not, right? But could be good. But I'm happy to see it anyway. But this was not being handed out at the Book Expo America at all. Had to come here for it. So who knows? Maybe it's just a question of what are they going to prioritize. Clearly it wasn't that. A few other things. This is a YA, The Forgetting, that I haven't really looked at in any detail. This one looks cute. Rocks Fall, Everyone Dies. I love the title, and this is a YA that got a good review I read in Kirkus. And it is about, apparently it's about a family who have magical powers, and they are sort of lording it over this community they live in. They live in a community, some town that I guess for some reason is located at the base of a massive cliff, and it's only the magic powers of this family are keeping the cliff from collapsing onto the town. Why they have a town there in the first place, I don't know. But anyway, there you go. And then the son is, loves to mess around in people's heads telepathically, and so I guess it's all about what it would be like to be, when you have an entire community where some people have the power over you, and this power that you can't match. And what that's like, that sort of power imbalance, I guess. So we'll see. Four Roads Cross is Max Gladstone's newest entry in his Craft Sequence series. This comes out in July. And yeah, here it is. So here's a tour arc. Again, not at the Book Expo America. Wasn't priority enough for that, but here it was. It was given to the the Nebula conference. And then finally, now again, here we go. Big Del Rey arc, right? Age of Myth, Michael Sullivan. This is going to be a huge hardcover release for them because it is his new 5-book series. Clearly, this is something that is a very important title to Del Rey Books. Was not anywhere in the Random Penguin Pavilion, not at all. It's here at the Nebulas, but they were not promoting it at the expo, which I thought was a really kind of a bit of a pity. But you know, so let's see, national marketing campaign. So yeah, I guess they decide specifically what those campaigns will include. So they're talking here about certain conventions where they are promoting it, various Comic Cons, as you can see. Book Expo America is not included there. So I guess they're thinking that maybe if they will just want to go directly to where the fans and the readers are, as opposed to an industry-oriented event like BEA, where you know librarians and booksellers and reviewers and the press and just people within the industry, maybe that's part of the decision here. Is that, you know, why bother taking something like this to BEA? You know, we'll just go to we'll go to San Diego, we'll go to New York Comic Con, where there's billions of fans, and we'll just put it right in people's hands. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that makes sense. Maybe that's actually, you know, maybe it's not such a mystery when you understand it that way, why they choose to promote or not promote books in certain ways. But yeah, I know a lot of you love Michael J. Sullivan. I'll certainly be reading this soon. Great opportunity to start something, but this comes out June 28th. And all right, so there you are. Just so that hello mirror, this video isn't like 9 hours long. I'm not going to show you all of the other stuff that is like behind me right there. There's a big stack of, you know, like I said, these are already released items that were also part of the Nebula goodie bag. I guess for the hell of it, I will show you a few extra things that I got at BEA that are non-SFF, because I do occasionally like to read outside the genre. It's a good way to keep your brain fresh. So I got these as pleasure reads. I won't be reviewing them on my channel or my site, but I just got them for me. But this is something that looked really pretty. This is a historical called By Gaslight, and apparently it's based on one of the original Pinkerton detective, or you know, Mr. Pinkerton himself, or his son, I think. But look how lovely that is. Like a big historical epic. Looks really great. Little Deaths is a murder mystery that they were really pushing over at Hachette. So I grabbed this for my mom, because she's the murder mystery buff, so I thought she would like that. And then Mishling is apparently a book about World War II. Yamini gave me this because she had a bonus one. Last Days of Night is another historical that they were pushing at Random Penguin, which it's all about the legal battles with Thomas Edison, who was not really an inventor. He was just more of a huckster and kind of an asshole. He stole all his ideas and then he tried to monopolize everything. And he was a real litigious prick. So this is a novel basically about a lawyer who's trying to countersue Thomas Edison. So that should be fun. So there's some of those that I just got as pleasure reads. And so there you go. There is everything. I hope you enjoyed watching. I want to thank you all for joining me. Once again, I had a great time hanging out with everybody at the BEA. I hope to see more of my booktubing friends at future conferences, because there's some people that I missed and some folks that I know would have had a wonderful time, and it would have been a valuable experience for them. And yeah, if it is in New York next year, I'm hoping that it is not the same weekend as Nebula weekend next time, because if I do decide to go back to the Nebula conference, I mean, Nebulas are likely to stay here in Chicago probably, and I got to be honest, from a business perspective, or from, you know, a reviewing, YouTubing, booktubing perspective, the BEA is probably a bit more of a valuable thing for me to attend if I had to choose between the two. But otherwise, hey, listen, thanks so much for joining me, and until I see you all next time, happy reading.